So a lot of what you just said really leads into my next question about resiliency. So this idea that, especially West Point women, we take on the world, we're going to do it all, and sometimes we have to accept the fact that we can't. A good support system can help, but we're seeing a decrease in resiliency in the United States across the board, resulting in an opioid crisis and other things. How are we, or how can we incentivize resilience in our soldiers and thereby reducing disability-seeking behavior?
Yeah, that's really a tough one, because we don't know really what's in the mind of folks that gets them to a point where they either give up, or they feel hopeless, or they feel that there's no other alternative, or they have some reason to believe or not believe in themselves. So that's really such a hard way to categorize it in just one way. But what I would think is overall resilience is allowing yourself opportunities to fail. And I think that's one of those where there's a fear of failure. And so there's a fear of really going out there. And of course, in things that, are recoverable from, right? You don't want to say, I'm going to just jump off this cliff and see if I can bounce down. Okay. Within areas that are outside of your comfort zone, and really, push yourself and realize you may not do well. I mean, West Point was really eye-opening. I'm sure it is to a lot of people when you've got, so many people from the top of their class, mixed together. Everybody's not going to be the top of the class, and I think that's right there really hard sometimes for folks to realize. But then you say, okay, I may not be, but I have a different experience. I don't have the same experience as the person next to me, and so that's one where always comparing yourself will lead to kind of despair and frustration and maybe other types of things. So just trying to have self, think of just rely on yourself. I don't want to say rely on yourself, but have a realistic view of everybody can't be number one. Everybody doesn't get a trophy, right? Sports, coming up where they don't want to keep score, so kids don't feel bad about, winners and losers. And even you can't even say losers. Losers sounds like a bad word. Winners and almost winners. That's what they, they used to have things. These are the winners, these are the almost winners. And so there's this thing set up that there's something bad or negative about losing. I mean, no one likes to lose, but it's part of playing the game. Because at the end of the game, if there's only one that can win, then the other person did not win. But do you learn from that? Do you say, okay, how did I not win? Because I was not as prepared. I just came up against a better opponent. So having opportunities where you have to be challenged to say, okay, I tried my best, but I can, potentially recover from that. And then having the sense that, Rhonda Cornum was, I don't know if you know Rhonda, she was awesome. She went through a whole lot, and she was very, very open about her experience. And she said, I could have either, rolled into myself and pitied myself and gone down, hill, or I could just, try to grow from it. So the whole thing of post-traumatic, there are a lot of traumatic things that we're exposed to that can impact our resilience. And her comments used to draw out this diagram. You can get post-traumatic, stress, and so you're on an even keel, and it kind of affects your psyche. And everyone gets that. There's an initial shock, but then what happens when you get to this point? You can either go farther down, or it turns up, and then you can either get back to baseline or even better than you were before. And she called that post-traumatic growth. Mm-hmm. And so how you view, challenges or stressors, do you view them as opportunities? And I think that can help as well. Turning around how you view things. It's like, oh, this is horrible, or it's like, this is a challenge. Versus, and it's hard. We're humans, right? We want, people don't like to be uncomfortable. So getting yourself, used to being uncomfortable. And so, how that relates to the opioid crisis, I think, one of the things, again, trying to set up a system where and again, the why is so hard. It's so multifaceted. It was an environment the person grew up in, isn't they're exposed to, but try to get to seeing your situation as an opportunity rather than a, what's the word I'm trying, like you're choked, you're boxed in,
right?
Or you're stuck, you're You know, you can't, there's no way out. I mean, how do you change that and say, well, I'm going to find a way out? You know, like they said, a cage is either, you know, you can look at it as something that confines you or something that challenges you to find a way out. And you may never get out, but at least there's a you know, way that you can preserve your resilience. And so, I don't know.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So Rhonda Cornum, in what she talks about, a lot of the stressors that she had to face were because she was a woman and the things that were done to her. And she is, I think, very good in the way that she addresses that, and how stress is stress. No matter who you are, no matter what your gender is, it is stress. But there are some uniquely female injuries and illnesses that occur as a result of soldiering. How much research is being conducted into the physical, mental, and emotional issues with women?
Yeah, a lot of research. I think, first of all, there's research that's done on all soldiers, which benefits women as well. It's about $7.4 million in this operational research program. I can get the specific name for you. It's MOMRP, can't remember something operational medicine research program. And then there's another about $4 million worth of research just on women's issues. And so that's, you know, things like load bearing and causing stress fractures and ways to mitigate that. I mean, they found that just giving a multivitamin with iron to women in a basic can prevent a lot of injuries, because maybe some, you know, we're coming from backgrounds where the diet's not that great, and not just because of, you know, poverty, but just what we eat, you know, these days, you know, it's just not maybe nutrient packed, and so just giving, you know, vitamin with calcium and iron can help, you know, strengthen the, you know, musculoskeletal system to avoid those injuries. Also, you know, there's studies on ergonomically appropriate uniforms and body armor. Because I remember coming up when I was, you know, graduating, used to wear the small, right? The small, you know, male version. But it was still, the torso was still long. I remember the, you know, the thing, the neck, so you would rest your chin on the neck because it, you know, it you know, landed on your hip, because women's, you know, the trunk to leg ratio is different. And even if you have a small one, so just the discomfort, you laugh because you know what I'm talking about. You probably have the same one of those too. So now the new body armor that fits the proportion. So just things like that, research to find, you know, ergonomically appropriate, appropriate body armor and other types of equipment that women might need. The other is, now that all the specialties, which is awesome, opening to women, all the different branches. What are some of the branch-specific requirements that might impact women? And I think the OPAT, which is a test that tells you it's not based upon male-female standards of how many of this, it's can you do this activity or not? And then we can help, you know, train you to a certain point if you need to, you know, be, you know, lift a certain amount. How do we make you, help you do that safely based upon that? So I think there are a lot of things now that are gender neutral. It's based upon what the requirements are to do that. Because you wouldn't want someone to say, well, I want to do it just because I want to, and then you end up injuring yourself by lifting loads that are just not possible for your skeleton. So I think those are some of the research and things that we're looking at.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
One of the concerns that was expressed was that at some locations there's only one or two females that are in specialties such as gynecology, which causes backlog and at times having to be referred off post for treatment. Are there more female doctors and specialists being hired who can address female-specific needs?
Yeah, so we, when we hire folks, we try to get the best of any type. We don't necessarily select certain gender types. But just within our own training program, I can tell you, so OBGYNs, the percentage of OB of our residents, about 68% of our residents are female. So that's a good number. I think there's like 74 that go through the training program, as compared to like family medicine, about 130, 140, and about 29% are female, the rest male. So in our specialties, we have more females that are in OBGYN. So we don't necessarily, you know, force it, because you wouldn't want to force someone to do a specialty they're not interested, but they're naturally gravitating towards that, so that will allow more women to be in those specialties. Where it would be a challenge is if we have to rely heavily on the, the network providers outside of our military treatment facilities, if they don't have women in those areas. But I gotta tell you, and even in medical schools nationally, there are more women that are going into medical school in the medical field, so I think there'll be opportunities to have more women in those specialties.